Hey everyone, welcome back to the shop. I'm really glad that you're here. I had some more stuff come in this morning. Got a BG50, BG55 that has a broken pull cord. 250 for an oiling issue. We're going to get to this one very soon. A 170 that won't start. 170 with a bar and chain issue. A 271 that won't start. A 170 that won't shut off with the switch. A 201 rear handle and a 201 rear handle. Both these 201s belong to Hydro Ontario. Today we are going to start here with this 170 that won't start. I'll see you at the workbench. Welcome back to my workbench. Today we have the Stihl MS170. The customer says that it won't start and that he runs true fuel in it. Let's find out what the problem is. So the MS170 is a 30cc occasional use homeowner chainsaw. And typically they run a 14 or 16 inch bar. This one has a 16-inch bar on it. So I would sell this to a person who is doing some yard cleanup. Maybe they're cutting large trees down but want a smaller saw for taking the branches off. That's where a saw like this fits in. So when an MS170 comes in and won't start, there's a few basic things to always be checked before you go too far. One of them is the fuel. It's probably the most important thing. There's a spark arrestor in the muffler. Always check that. We always make sure the chain is on the sprocket properly. If it is put on incorrectly, that can cause a problem. And your air filter and your spark plug. Because of the design of this saw, it's non-stratified, old school, very common for the spark arrestor behind here to get plugged up. I see it all the time. I've seen people throw chainsaws in the dump all because that's plugged up. So the design of this saw, you lose 20% of your fuel out the exhaust, and the oil in that fuel gets stuck in the spark arrestor. You get this like build up here on the outside of the muffler. That's why the big push is on to end these, what they call dirty saws, and move over to cleaner, emission friendly saws. The MS170 was recently discontinued in Canada and has been replaced with the more emission friendly MS162. Let's dig in and find out what's causing the problem here. Let's check this spark arrestor first thing. There's two 8mm nuts on the front there. I'm just going to throw a bar cover on so I don't cut myself. I can't afford a day off work. So the sticker on the front of this chainsaw says, made by Stihl in China. So Stihl does have a factory in China where they do make some products, including some MS170s, I believe some MS250s, FS38 trimmers, and probably some other stuff. For years, all of our MS170s came from the factory in Virginia Beach, USA. And then at some point, they started all coming from the factory in China. I'm told that it's something to do with tariffs coming into Canada. So I would prefer North American made products, obviously. I hate to see manufacturing and business leave North America, but I don't have any say in this. So this little sticker gets brought up to me in the comments quite often. So yes, indeed, this chainsaw was made in China. So we'll just pop this off And behind here is a fine screen. We're going to see if it's clean or if it's plugged up. There's the screen, and it is clean. If that was plugged up, I would just heat it up and use a wire brush to clean it out. So that is not causing this saw any issues. So we're just going to put it back in. Next, let's take a look at the fuel in this. So when the customer dropped it off, he said he runs a canned fuel in it. And I asked him if he ran Stihl fuel, and he said no, it's something he buys from Canadian Tire, which is a box type store here in Canada. So I think they sell True Fuel there. It is pinkish in color. It looks and smells like True Fuel, but I'm going to dump it out anyways into a container. We can have a look just in case there's water or something in it that shouldn't be there. I'll pour it into this glass jar. Just makes it easier to look at. I don't see any water. If there was water in it, you'd see it sitting in like a big bubble in the bottom. The fuel looks fine. Just gonna have a look in the fuel tank. So the fuel tank is spotless inside, and the fuel line looks good. I have seen these right from the factory have a kink in the fuel line, and that will definitely cause a problem. But everything looks fine in there. I'm going to put his fuel back in it, because when I go over to try to start this, I want to start it under the same conditions he was. So, True Fuel with no water back in the tank. So, we've checked this. We've checked the spark arrestor is clean. The chain is installed correctly and not binding. So that is not the problem. Pull this top cover off and have a quick look, and then we'll go over to the door and try to start this. One turn to the left. The MS170 has a very basic air filter in it. I tell people who buy these to carry a couple extra with them. They're very inexpensive, but there's not much to them. So when they get dirty, you can clean them or replace them. Now this one, I mean, obviously the saw's done some work. Let's pull that spark plug out. Although this filter doesn't look too bad, on a hot day, this would contribute to making this saw flood easily. That there is a brand new spark plug. And actually this saw came to me in a case, and there's 2 spark plugs sitting in the bottom of his case as well. I found this spark plug in the bottom of his chainsaw case. This is a Bosch plug. So this is probably the original plug. He probably took it out, put a new one in. It still wouldn't start. So then he just dropped it off here. So he tried a couple basic things. I don't expect that there's any problem in this engine, but we had the plug out. So let's go down there with the camera and just have a quick look. His old plug, the original plug, didn't look bad. Doesn't look like it's had a lot of runtime. I wonder if he's ran true fuel right from the beginning, or if he put this in it because he was having problems. I checked the gap on this plug, it was fine. I checked the gap on the plug I took out of it, and it's fine. So we'll put this back in. The piston and cylinder look just like new inside. I have previously seen an MS170 come in that wouldn't start. And what it turned out to be is the choke rod, which is up in behind here, wasn't bent properly. So the saw wasn't choking properly. So I'm going to take just this plastic off. We'll verify that the choke rod is functioning, and then we will take this over and try to start it. So to take this off, there are 2 8mm nuts right there. We will remove those, and then we'll take a look. Okay, so there's the choke rod right there. So when I choke this, that should close right up like that. So I have seen on another saw where you choked it, you thought you were choking it, but if this rod is bent incorrectly, not working properly, then this can lead to a starting problem. Like if you were choking it and it was only going, say, that far, this would give you starting problems. So I wanted to verify that it's working, and it is. Put that back on, and then we'll go over and try to start this saw. Just tighten that air box back on. There we go. His air filter. Okay, so we've got his fuel back in it, his spark plug, and his air filter back in it. The muffler screen is clean. Let's take it over to the door and see what happens. Before I go out, I'll just make sure there's bar oil in it. Yep, the reservoir is half full of bar oil. I'll meet you over the door. Let's go. so the Stihl MS170 started right up for me. Actually started really well, better than I expected. So this saw has been sitting here in its case for a week and a half on my cold cement floor. We pulled the plug out and it was dry. I don't know if like true fuel, you hear things about it. I've seen videos about it online. I have seen the odd problem with it. So I don't really know if this is a fuel problem. Probably it was flooded. It explains in the manual that we give a manual out with every single saw that leaves. It explains how to unflood these, explains everything about this saw, but I don't really know if people read their manuals. If you suspect that your chainsaw is flooded, if you go to your owner's manual, you will find this section, if the engine does not start, and there are your directions to follow to unflood it. If I suspect that a chainsaw is flooded, I'm going to show you what I would do first. So full throttle, master control lever all the way down, let go of your throttle, move the lever up one click. I call that high idle. I'm sure there's 10 different names for it. On high idle, pull the saw over. It could take 10 or more tries, but you could possibly unflood it like this. If this doesn't work, pull the plug out, follow what the manual tells you. I can tell you that by doing this, I have unflooded many chainsaws in our parking lot for people. So when the customer comes in to pick up his chainsaw, I'm going to educate him on how to unflood the saw, and I'll refer him to his manual, which he would have got the day he bought the saw. I'm going to mention the true fuel to him. This saw seems to run okay on it. I've seen saws that won't run on it. Maybe true fuel makes it flood easier. Maybe it was a hot day he was trying to start it. I'm not really sure. I know this wasn't very exciting. There was no major defects, but hopefully this was educational for somebody who is at home right now with an MS170 that won't start and doesn't want to visit the dealership. If you have one at home, it could be as simple as maybe the saw is flooded, maybe it's your fuel, maybe your spark arrestor is plugged up and needs to be cleaned out. It's gas and time to drive to a shop when you could possibly fix it yourself at home. Well, I think the case is closed on the Stihl MS170. This isn't the first 170 on my bench, and it definitely won't be the last. I have many saws over there calling my name. Let's get to it. Thank you so much for watching.